Over the years, we've had our fair share of success here on the show. Most episodes see the team heading home with smiles on their dials, savouring the sweet satisfaction that comes with a well-executed hunt. Unfortunately, this is not one of those episodes. This story begins in the final days of March. The roar has only just begun, that special time of the year when the red stags become vocal and aggressive, making them incredibly exciting to hunt.
Well, there's not too much to go now, Dre.
No, I've just got one more terrace, a small rise, and we'll be up the top.
Getting up early will pay dividends. Early bird gets the worm.
That's it. So yeah, it's raw time. Anto's come up from down south and we're going to hit some North Island stags.
I hear they're a bit tougher than the southern stags.
We've walked into an old spot. The old man used to hunt this back in the 70s, so hopefully we can get onto a few roaring stags. Yeah, I guess the idea, the difference between doing this any other time of the year is trying to get in close to some close quarter action. We've come into the area that we want to be hunting. We've put ourselves right in that sort of zone where we can hopefully start to hear some animals roaring. But it's pretty methodical type hunting. We're going to be moving pretty slowly. There's probably a kilometre, say, from there to there. We're going to try and cover that in like 3 hours. Righto, keep moving.
Bush stalking red stags requires hunters to be methodical and disciplined, but it's also heavily reliant on timing. If the window you choose to hunt is a few days early, then you'll need to do some bloody hard work to find any vocal stags. As well as timing, bush stalking also requires a fair amount of luck, and that's a commodity that Anto and I seem to be in short supply of so far.
Silence. So we've come across a couple more wallows.
Well, this wallow hasn't been used in the last couple of days. It's definitely been well used last week. You can see all the grass has been pushed over by the dirt and everything, so positive sign. Real positive.
It's a good step.
As we move deeper into the bush, we start coming across more stag sign, including a strong scent.
I can smell it.
I can smell a stag really strongly. So we're pretty sure there's one around here somewhere.
But unluckily for us, a spooked hind's the only animal we see over the course of the first morning's hunt.
Shouldn't even know we're there.
So, we make our way back to our base to pitch up a proper camp and prepare ourselves for an evening hunt.
So we've made camp, had a good feed. It's 6 o'clock now, so it's prime time, so hopefully we're into it.
It's been tough going today. We've put a few up in the bush. And the cameraman's just like himself.
I can't believe you didn't smash that camera.
After dusting himself off, cameraman Dave follows us deeper into the bush as evening descends.
Just pushed our way along the wee ridge. It's starting to get dark now. We still haven't heard a lock. Sounds a good sign.
We can hear the faint sound of it roar just enough in the distance there. I think we'll just park up right till dark and hear what we can hear. How far do you reckon he is from here?
Considering there's a bit of wind, I'd say 500 yards, maybe a K. Well, we've just been listening to the stag roaring down the face here. He's a wee way off, so he's probably not the right deer to chase tomorrow morning. But we've got a bit of a hike back to camp now regardless, and make a plan while we have a bit more dinner.
Second dinner, I agree. I'm in for a bit of that. Well, I've been up half an hour, it's day 2 now. I'm pretty excited. We heard a stag roaring just up above us this morning, so that's a good sign. Got onto a couple of wallows last night that have been used, so we've got high hopes this morning.
With the mist coming in and the temperature changing, it could just be enough to snap the stags into real rutting mode.
I tell you what, it's damn frustrating hunting, to put it plainly. The non-stop routine of walk, roar, wait, repeat can really get you down when you're not hearing any replies or seeing much in the way of fresh sign to keep you excited. But things can change in an instant.
So it's been a pretty tough morning. We've pushed our way up onto a high ridge here. Haven't heard anything yet. Decided to stop here, seeing we're nice and high, and listen down into a big gully. We'll probably have a bit of a feed while we wait, give it an hour or two, and then push on.
Go up to this wallow and then cut up onto the ridge. And then from there we're just going to head due south. That's a hunter. That's a hunter. sounds too hollow. We'll go and sit up there and see if we can hear it. We'll just wait for a bit, right? We heard a roar, but we've just we're going to hold tight. We don't think it's actually an animal, so potentially be another hunter. But we're just a bit unsure at the minute, so we're just going to hold our position and maybe wait to hear the roar again. I've never seen another hunter in the bush. In this kind of situation, safety's paramount, and if you're unsure, you're better just to sit tight, not move, not roar, until you're 100% sure. It's quite hard to sort of pull back and make an assessment, but it's always better if you're unsure to err on the side of caution and be wary rather than too gung-ho. That's today. They're not Z8s though. Yep. I was just did a roar. Had a bit of a strong response, would say about 400 or 500 metres away. It's a wee way, but we're going to push on. We've only got an hour or so of light left. It's getting close now. The wind's good. Roar 'em up, roar 'em up. Let 'em moan, eh? I was a bit disappointed where that stag come into about 50 or 60 yards. Started to get pretty sheepish on us, and he's just quietened up. I think the wind switched on us, and I think he may have cut our wind and snuck off, so a bit heartbreaking, but that's hunting.
There's no point in hounding them once they've cut you in like that. Best to move away, and if you're coming back, there's a chance tomorrow, so we'll see what happens yet.
Well, after that close encounter this evening, it was a big hike back to camp. The rains have really come in now.
Right now the priority is to get a bit of warm grub in us, get some good rest. Hopefully this rain buggers off in the morning and I don't burn my hands and my eyebrows at the same time. However, by morning the weather hasn't improved. So given that we've really struggled to find any stags in this area, we make a call to relocate camp and try our luck somewhere new, where hopefully the overnight rainfall may result in increased animal movement as dominant stags venture out to remark their territories with fresh scent.
Lucky the Garmin Rhino with us today. This type of tight country up here in the North Island, it's crucial to have a GPS, a compass and a map to help you navigate. We had some weather roll in. It's been pretty terrible, to be honest. We packed up camp and moved it on further into the block that we're hunting. It's now like late in the afternoon. We're hoping that we're going to come up to a flat terrace and get into some roaring action.
Well, it's a bit of shock to me after it's rained. It's so humid, it's like being in a tropical rainforest. I'm sweating up a storm. I feel like I'm in the Bahamas. But the stags are roaring, so thumbs up.
So we'll just go snag across there.
But the weather has other plans.
We've got stags roaring up sort of around us and below us, but the weather's going to really crap itself in a minute, so we're getting the wet weathers on and probably going to hunker down somewhere or start to make our way back to camp. Yeah, which is disappointing. I guess it'll help us cool us down.
Well, it's wet, it's still pretty hot work. Now we're at the top of the mountain chasing these things around, we've got to head all the way back down.
It's been a tough 4 days for us hunting red stags up here in the North Island, but that's the nature of the beast sometimes.
Well, lucky for you guys is you're going to get out of this podocarp forest and down south into the beech forest.
And hopefully the stags are a bit more vocal than they have been for us.
Oh well, it was a bit of a shame the boys up north didn't have any luck, but we're here in the deep south 2 days later. Hopefully right in the peak of the red stag roar, so fingers crossed we can get some action for you.
Look at this, bottomless pit. Look at that, got a way to go. Imagine if they'd been fighting and got tipped in there.
Some of this country, you hear stories, especially in southwestern actually, of big holes and people going missing, hunters going missing years ago, and this is a hole here we've just found where obviously a stag's fallen in here at one stage and the whole carcass is in there. Going by the fact he's got all his bones, we think it's probably not hunter related, he's just fallen in and never been able to get out again, so pretty awful death, like a mouse in a bucket really.
Horrible way to go.
That makes me sad, actually.
Dan and Sam continued down the swampy valley, careful of their foot placements so as not to end up suffering a similar fate to the drowned stag. But much like Anto and my experience in the north, the stags don't seem to be quite in full voice yet. And it's not till evening descends that the first roar of the trip is heard.
One out to our left and one up ahead. One sounded straight up ahead. So there's a stag roaring. We've come back. We've had a look from camp. Not much happening, no noise. We've been roaring and we've just got 2 stags going now. We've only probably got 20 minutes of light left.
He's up behind us.
Yeah, this one's out here though, eh?
Yep.
He's just opposite camp.
He's not far, eh?
Okay.
A little bit closer. The light is fading, so what we're frantically doing is just scanning the bush edge with our binos. Hopefully something steps out and we might get either a shot with the rifle or a shot with the camera, so it's pretty exciting.
Oh, that's always a good indication when you go for a bit of a recce downstream, and there wasn't much going, but right on dark we've just had 3 stags going well. So maybe in the morning we might be able to get in on something. Righto, we'll head back to base camp, eh?
Sounds good, mate.
So last night, just on dark, we had 3 stags roaring. As it turned out, they were roaring all through the night. We got up this morning and they've shut up, but we've just come around. We've been trying to target one of these stags we heard going quite well late last night, and maybe see if we can rack him up mid-morning. When his hinds start moving around, he might get a bit anxious and start letting out a few moans and groans. There, Dave, the hind, straight through that gap, move to your left half metre. See it? Behind. There'll be a stag here somewhere. There'll be a stag here somewhere. Let out a moan now, Curly. It's getting alert, it's gone.
She's probably about less than 20 yards away, and she just stood there, sort of checking us out, looking through the trees. Good to see another deer in the bush. Sort of gives you the reassurance that you're on the right path anyway.
We've come into the zone, and as soon as we've got into a roundabout, the spur and the bench we thought he'd be, we've run into one of his hinds. So he's not roaring, but he won't be far away.
Yeah, you'd like to think so.
Despite the team's best efforts though, the stag refuses to materialise.
So after not finding any more deer in the bush after that hind, we decided since we're so close to the tops, we might as well push on up and have a look into another catchment. Unfortunately, the wind's howling up here at the moment, so it's not that pleasant, but hopefully once we get over to the leeward side here, it might die off a wee bit. Just tucked over the ridge into a new catchment. As you can see, it's stunning, typical Fiordland type country. The weather's supposed to be getting pretty rough tonight, and probably tomorrow we're going to be in the tents pretty much, so it's already starting to come in. So basically we're just going to have a quick look here and see what's around, and then maybe head back to camp and bunker down.
So it's been pretty slow going here in Fiordland. We're in the middle of Fiordland, struggling to find deer. We haven't had any luck, so now we're heading back. We've come back through the saddle on the other side. We'll put ourselves on evening somewhere decent to hopefully catch something out.
The mocking laughter of a local Kia heralds the early onset of the forecasted bad weather. So despite the team's best intentions of heading out for an evening hunt, there's little else to do except bunker down under the fly and wait it out. By the time morning rolls round though, absolutely nothing's changed. Weather patterns can be extremely stubborn in these parts, and it's not unheard of for it to rain solidly for a week at a time, creating waterfalls out of mere trickles. And with the barometer on the Garmin watch continuing to sink, things are looking fairly grim for the team.
Well, it's been a bit of a long, wet night. Camped in our tents there. It's only just stopped raining in the last sort of half hour, and hopefully this day's holding a bit more promise. Packs on backs and just head off for a couple of nights in the bush and see what we can find, really.
Stag on the flat. There's a stag on the flat. No shit. I'm swearing.
Sorry.
There's a stag on the flat. Just gone round the corner.
corner for a wee look, and there's a stag just strutting on the flat.
Finally, we've got our first stag of the roar on camera, but he's not exactly anything to write home about.
Oh, that was pretty cool. Yeah, just out in the middle of the clearing, just trying to get out of the wet bush, I suppose, and good way to start the day.
It's fairly positive that the barometer's now suggesting the weather's on the mend. So after being camped down for about 36 hours, the front's moved on and we've decided to pack up some of our overnight gear and we're going to head for a 2-night mission into some country that on the map looks pretty promising. So hopefully we can find a stag or two that's actually leading out a roar. So we've just punched up from camp. We're heading onto a ridge system which we've just popped up on now. We're going to travel along and try and drop into quite a big catchment that looks promising. But even this country's mint, but we haven't seen a deer yet and we haven't heard anything. So I think we'll just keep plugging away and having a roar down into some of those gullies, eh?
Yeah, mate.
It's certainly spectacular country, but we're not here for the beauty, we're here for the beasts.
Almost like we need to be on the valley floor, you know.
Yeah, do we drop down? Do we drop right down?
Anywhere else there'd be a stag and some animals around that clearing, you know.
Yeah. We haven't seen any sign in the tops apart from deer travelling through the tops, so getting the feeling the stags are on the move. There's no deer really living and feeding in the tops, so it's time for us to change tactics really, and we're going to have to drop down into some of these larger canopy gullies and get right in there and see if we can wall something up living down low.
Fresh looking rub.
Losing all your hard-earned elevation can be annoying, but stags can often be found living at one particular elevation, so it's an easy decision for the guys to drop back down to the valley floor.
So we've just dropped down right off the tops down into the gully, and Yuli thought he faintly heard a stag. So we've just got one going now down in the creek here somewhere. So beggars can't be choosers, this guy's roaring, and to be honest, with the mission and how hard we've found it to find deer, this will probably be a hell of a trophy. So we've got the stag roaring quite well. Yuli's going to stay here and roar, and hopefully he won't be put off by us. He'll just be listening to Yuli this far away, whereas we'll sneak right in on him. Hopefully he'll stay vocal.
Stag's actually gone quiet just over the last couple of minutes, so possibility, it sounded like he was getting quite close, so he could be trying to cut in behind us.
The stag's been roaring up in here. It stinks of stag where he's been roaming. But he's shut up, so. Yuli's gone mad. So as it often happens in a roar, if they're not quite in the swing of things, or maybe the stag just thought something wasn't quite right with the way we sounded from the other side, but he shut up shop and headed for greener pastures, I think. It's been a super tough trip so far. We thought we'd be in amongst the deer, but we've been really struggling to catch up with roaring stags, so close but no cigar today, and hopefully better luck tomorrow.
But as they say, luck's a fickle mistress, and it seems she's nowhere to be found around these parts.
So we woke up this morning with some pretty high hopes. We had a bit of a feed and we just strapped on the belts actually. We thought we'd head off for a hunt. But as it turns out, we had a message come through from the chopper operator, and he's pretty much needing to get us out of here. There's a massive front on its way. So it's been a pretty tough trip. It's been pretty hard to find deer, so pretty disappointing really. And we haven't quite scratched that raw itch yet. So hopefully with a couple of days up our sleeve, we might still be able to get into the bush and find something roaring just to satisfy that urge for another year. Changing our plans faster than we change our underwear, eh?
After being collected by the chopper, Dan and Sam continued on their quest for a roaring red, this time in some shoulder country bordering the edge of Fiordland National Park.
There's always a chance. That's another thing I always say.
But unfortunately, the trip continued on the same vein as the previous one.
Hello, is that dollar stag? Yeah, I was just wondering, what are the chances for you guys dropping into our location, say, in about 20 minutes or so? Yeah, perfect. You know, that'd be good. Sam. F-Boss, thanks.
Extra large, eh?
Yeah, extra large, yep.
We had a massive day, no roars all day, and we haven't walked into a deer either. Yeah, want to take up a new sport, mate.
Let's go.
It's a bloody hard pill to swallow, but that's hunting for you. Following our Fiordland fiasco, we pick up the raw hunting action back in the North Island. And anyone who's had the pleasure of hunting this country before will know full well where we are from these images. We've also opted to make use of the Polaris this time to help save the legs. But as before, I'll once again be looking to take a stag with the old stick and string. Joining me for this round is Kieran Andrews from Garmin and his good buddy Brownie.
So Sam and Dan had a bit of a rough run down there in Fiordland, but a few seasons have passed since then, and back in the North Island now, where we started off in the first place. We've had missions all over the place, the Kaiwais, Mamakoos. The only thing I caught there was a few yabbies really, rather than red stags roaring. Yeah, and Anto and Mike, they were down south and put in their best foot forward too, but they lucked out also. So it's been a bit of a rough run, but you know, this is what we're here to do, is hunt in the roar, and hopefully we can make something happen this time. It's just coming up, 5, 6 o'clock, so we're going to push back along where we've come and drop into some of these guts and gullies and hopefully get onto a roaring stag. We've got a series of leading spurs that drop into the watershed that we want to hunt. The plan is tonight is to stay up nice and high, get onto some of these gully heads and let out a few roars and see if there's anything at home. But tonight's more of a recce than anything, just to see what's kicking around.
They're eating the Miro berries. So back in the day, the Maoris used to eat them when they've been eating these, because they put on a lot of weight and a lot of fat, and they used to cook them with the stomach in, because the juices from the berries would go through the flesh and make it taste better.
So they say.
So they say. Wouldn't know anything about it.
Just got Kieran on the radio. He's been moaning away, and he just radioed me to tell me that he's just heard something crashing through the bush there, so it's sort of coming our direction, so just keep it nice and quiet.
It's just a bush robin making a heck of a racket.
Yeah, copy that. The leaf litter at the moment's quite dry, so it makes a hell of a racket. Even birds just sort of skipping along the leaves, it sort of catches your ear, so. But really we want to be hearing that big bellow boom. That's Kieran.
Roaring in blackbirds again. That way.
Yeah, it was all business last night. We packed out from where we were hunting last night right back to camp under torchlight, cooked up a quick feed and then hit the hay with the idea of putting a good day in today. Just after 6 in the morning, and the plan's similar to yesterday, is get up on some of these high ridges and try and hear some of these stags roaring and sort of zero in on them. But if they're not roaring really well, it's really hard to make a plan for the day, but it's sounding like it's gonna be a good one for us if these stags really get up and get going. So that's an awfully good night's sleep. There's a stag going off. It seems like just across the gully from me, so probably have to backtrack from where I came last night and stay up on the high ridge and try and get a bit closer. So it's coming up daybreak now, so I think we're just going to push off and try and get an early start on it. At the moment, still that morning wind drift down slope, so heard this animal over in this direction at the moment, but I'm up on the high ridge. I don't want to sort of push in there yet because the wind's still drifting down, so I'm waiting for that sun to get up a little bit and start to turn that thermal around and come back up towards me. Next spur. He sounds like he's one more sort of spur away from me. He's responding to me, which is good. This is us. Spur looks nice and open. Every time I let out a roar, that animal's coming back to me, so it's quite hard because there's so many little ridges and it's such steep country that it's really hard to pick where he is, so I think I'm still another spur off potentially.
It's beautiful country to hunt in, but the steep folds and guts are making it very hard to pinpoint the location of the stag I'm trying to close the gap on.
Sort of mid-morning and just let out a lazy moan and got a reply from across the gully. We were trying to catch up with the stag, but he seems like he's kind of moving. But that was probably the most clear roar we've heard sort of in our direction, so I'm hoping that he's on the next spur, but we're going to push back across the gully rather than going down and up because it's real thick down below us. There he goes. Yeah, we'll get moving. Yeah, he's fired up. There's another one even further beyond him, but there's literally like a stag on each of these spurs heading down to the main valley. Mate, he's on the spur. I think he's going nuts.
Finally, we've honed in on a fired up stag that's making a fair bit of noise. Plus, we've had a steady breeze in our favour, so I'm determined to make this one pay after all the failures we've had up to this point. Unfortunately, determination doesn't always pay the piper, and after a couple of hours of ninja-like stalking, placing every footstep with care, we've eventually been forced to bite the bullet. It seems that this stag is equally determined to remain one ridgeline ahead of us as it makes its way down to greener pastures near the valley floor. So, plan B is put into action.
We've left the high ridges that we were today hunting. We've heard quite a few deer roaring, but they're actually quite a wee way down low, so Cameron, Dave and I have taken the opportunity to come way down into the valley where the animals have been roaring. We've set up a camp for the night. We're going to do a bit of a recce and head upstream up the river, see if we can pinpoint some animals for the evening and then sort of hatch a plan of attack tomorrow. Dave, do not move. Let's head back in the green bit vehicle.
The shot's connected with the boar, likely passing through the lungs. So despite appearances to the contrary, it's now living on borrowed time as he bolts off into the undergrowth.
We're just packing up to go chase a stag, and I went to go pick my pack up, and a grey boar just walked out onto the clearing that we've just set up camp. So I've just like crept from the tent, which is just there, 20 metres shot, straight through the boiler room, shot off up underneath those pungas there, so I'll give it a bit, and then might be having some pork for dinner. Well, there's the arrow, blood on it. It's definitely made contact, and he's skipped down here.
We spend until dark searching for the boar, but agonisingly, the blood trail is lost amongst the dense foliage and thick scrub, and without a dog on the scent, there's no way of us finding him. So it's yet another massive disappointment.
You got anything to say, Dre?
Probably less said the better. Didn't hear any stags roaring. I've just bunkered up at camp here under the Tonka one man and get an early night and start fresh tomorrow morning. Bit of a misty old morning down here in the river. Knocked up some brekkie, classic backcountry good breakfast. Today. Yesterday those stags were going bananas. Nothing. Found a nice open clearing on the river flats here and just let out a roar and got a faint reply back. It sounds a bit muffled and a bit funny, so we did see some hunters way down on the flats earlier today, just on first light, so sketchy at times when you're hunting in the North Island. There's other hunters in these public blocks and puts you in that sort of situation where you're guessing. It's like, oh, was that a deer? Wasn't it? Was it a human being? It's not a very nice feeling. So what we'll probably do is we'll push back down and have a look across the river, see if that is actually people. Boy. Yep, coming up. Where are they? Yep, they were people. So there you go.
Whilst it's a bit of inconvenience, we take the time to have a good chinwag with the two bow hunters and come up with a plan that will enable both parties to hunt safely.
We might catch up with you on the way out, maybe.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, you too, guys.
So we just split up from those hunters we bumped into, and now the stag's piped up, but those guys are headed in his direction. I'll leave that one to the boys, hopefully they get onto it. That's just the flip of the coin almost. We're sort of discussing which direction we'd go, and it sounds like they've picked the right one, but we've got a bunch of country up behind us. Hopefully there's a stag. We can see marks up on the flats and terraces up here, so we'll go try and make our own luck up the back here.
Up the back here proves to be a touch more precarious than envisaged, with up being the operative word. Within a few hundred metres, the country becomes extremely steep and nasty, and as I'm soon painfully to discover, fantails aren't the only flying critters in this neck of the woods.
Man, Dave's just ahead of me. He obviously disturbed the wasp nest, and I just caught full force of them, like about 6 or 7 wasps just all over my head. I just had my bow to defend myself. I was probably making it worse, to be honest. But it was, it's not really what you want, is it? Let's take a break. So it was a hell of a climb up to where we are now. Wasps getting stung, slipping and climbing, basically rock climbing in some sections, but this terrain here in this part of New Zealand is crazy steep. We'll get up off on this little ledge here, or might even let out a few roars here and see if we get a response a little bit later in the day. But yesterday the stag that we heard from across the gully, he was going well right up until about 2 o'clock. He's been a little quiet today. Great looking piece of country over there. It's like a grassy clearing just in the middle of a bench on this real steep, rugged country. Just spotted a few goats sitting up there, so not ideal. Rather a stag. There's a goat there that is just huge. That was close. Bloody steep there.
I'm a bit more careful with my foot placement on the rest of the descent, but it just feels like another one of those days where it's not going to happen for us. The vocal stag which drew us down the day prior has ceased roaring, and with bugger all sign around, well, it's a little disheartening to say the least.
Back to where we started for the day. Popped out on the clearing that we climbed up onto from the river.
Once back down on the flats, and with the pain of my wasp stings now fading, we decide to give ourselves an ultimatum. If a stag isn't heard roaring overnight, then we'll pull stumps, and Cameron and Dave will head off and rendezvous with Anto on the other side of the North Island, handing him the keys to the Polaris for a last gasp attempt at a roaring red. And as predicted, it was the kind of night that Simon and Garfunkel once wrote about. So, time for Plan C.
So, on the back of a week seeker hunting with Morgan and Brad, I've got a day up my sleeve, so me and Morgan and Damo here snuck off into the back blocks to try and chase down a red stag. While we've had a bit of a curse on us in this episode trying to find a stag, I've got a day here to make something magic happen. It's late in April, but they do roar a bit later here in the North Island.
To cut a long story short, the lads traipsed around through what admittedly looks like some pretty good bush for the best part of the day, but didn't hear a thing. So, to save depressing you viewers any further, we're putting aside our close country roar plans for the time being, and instead taking a complete U-turn, swapping roaring reds for spiky reds. We had such an epic time aboard Pure Salt back in our 3rd season that we just had to head back in for another trip for the fellas that missed out. For this mission, Dan and Tim were joined by a couple of Hunting and Fishing New Zealand competition winners, plus the 2 Scotties, Scott from Traeger and Scott from Hunting and Fishing New Zealand Dunedin.
So we just arrived in Deep Cove. We've got the Hunting and Fishing New Zealand competition winners. They're coming in the 500, coming in hot. So this is Glenn and Ellie. I think we can see it sparkling from here, but it seems like Ellie's come in with a little bit more gear on her fingers than what she started with back at the hangar.
What is that?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been too nice if she said no, eh? No. It might be a bit awkward.
Yeah, it was an interesting flight in. I had a bit of a plan. It could have gone both ways. Would have been pretty awkward to be on a boat for a week when she said no, but she said yes, so pretty stoked with that.
Whilst a bit of hunting's on the cards, the main activity for the next few days involves harvesting the fruits of the sea. As this particular stretch of the Fiordland coast is punctuated by some fairly impenetrable bush in many places.
First dive into Fiordland, bring it on. What else?
New Zealand crays are considered a delicacy around the world and are a prized catch for the majority of freedivers the length of the country, where they often can be quite a challenge to locate and procure without the use of scuba gear. Here in Fiordland, however, the sheer numbers living relatively shallow means that you're almost guaranteed to be able to snag enough for a feed. When hunting crays, look for them in cracks and under boulders along rocky, kelpy sections of the coast. Being filter feeders, they do like a bit of a view, so if you find yourself digging through kelp trying to find them, you're probably trying too hard. When it comes to the grabbing technique, you want to get the cray at the base of the horns. One strategy is to aim for the carapace, and as the cray backs away, your hand will usually end up on its horns.
Oh, he got you.
You see you?
Yeah, no, plenty.
You pulled up one gun.
Happy greedy.
Yeah, hungry are you?
Feed. Got a few powers in there too. So we're eating well tonight. We got a bit of clearance, a few war wounds.
Second morning here on the boat, and probably a few dusty customers, so we're not quite on the crack of dawn, but we thought we'd get out for a hunt anyway and go have a bit of a look and get off the boat. Apparently there's a few clearings around the place. It's in the morning, so the breeze will be coming down the valley still until the day warms up a little bit, until it starts pushing up, so which means we can hunt with our face up into the wind for a wee bit, and we might get lucky on finding one of those hungry little critters. Dear what? It's amazing how deep that water is. It's like a visual illusion. Right, so we'll maybe push up for about another hour or so and see if we can find something. Obviously our sounds are guarded, so trying to make progress. If you go closer to the water, you can have some of your noise covered. But obviously it's not, you don't just hunt creeks, you got to find those feed faces and get into the vegetation that's providing a deal of tucker. But on a sopping wet day like this, we're just trying to make a bit of progress. Use the creeks to your advantage, use the noise to your advantage. So plan B, we're going to head back to the boat. We haven't found any deer. To be honest, it's not the best country that we've wandered up into. We've ended up being gorged out. A bit of a waterfall and a bit of a gorge, and the luxury of some of the camera gear we got with us. We got the drone in the air and checked out some of the country upriver, and decided we'll probably pull pin, get back to the boat, maybe have a go for some hapaka later. Fortunately, it's not just red meat that goes well in the Traeger. Seafood, that'll go down real well. There's plenty of that around here, so might have to get the boys back in the water.
Boys are in for a hunt, so we figure we're going for a spare and try and get some teriyaki for some sashimi. Order in from the chef, and blue cod as well, hopefully. Hopefully no sharks.
In the brackish shallows, the water's discoloured by tannins and runoff from the numerous rivers feeding into the bay. But the reduced clarity does make it easier for the divers to get closer to their prey than it would be when diving the gin clear depths.
Another one for the smoker.
Curly, what do you got there, bro?
Big fat conger. Oh, feisty, mate.
Why don't we smoke that?
Why are we not eating it? What you got there, mate?
Oh, I've got no idea. We've been catching blue cod and sharks, but it doesn't feel like either one.
Oh, papuka, you beauty.
Nice one, Scotty. That'll go well on the Traeger.
Whoa, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Well done, mate. We need to be diving around the boat.
I know.
We've been waiting for one, haven't we?
Oh, nice fish, Scotty.
What are we after here?
We're on the great sea cucumber hunt. So apparently, well, I've never eaten them. I've always wanted to. I've always, like, I know that they eat them over in China and that, but yeah, always wanted to try them. But one of Dave's mates is actually, selling them into Asia. So we thought we'd come out. He's given us all the info on them, how to eat them as well. So we're gonna grab a few, maybe 10 or a dozen or something, and fry some up today. Have a wee taste. You seem sceptical.
Oh, the last thing you think when you look at a sea cucumber is, that looks delicious. I want to put that in my mouth.
Come on, Sam.
I'll give it a nudge,
Starting here, someone?
Looks good to me.
Sea cucumbers, sea slugs, bêche de mer, call them what you will. But whilst they may not look particularly mouth-watering, these New Zealand gold-tip sea cucumbers are a precious resource that's also greatly underutilised. They can be found hiding in many coastal waters throughout New Zealand, although the ones in the southern waters are apparently the most sought after. Sometimes referred to as the vacuum cleaners of the sea, they serve a useful role in the marine ecosystem by helping recycle nutrients and break down detritus and other organic matter. These golden coloured cucumbers are especially prized for both culinary and medicinal purposes, although to be honest, they don't offer a hell of a lot to divers in the way of sport. So with a bag full of slugs,
Sweet.
the target shifts to the spiky reds. And as per usual here in Fiordland, finding these delicious critters isn't too much of a stretch for the team. Although when you possess a set of lungs the size of Timmy's, grabbing just a single cray doesn't pose anywhere near enough of a challenge.
Good dive. Stone the old blue cod. Sweet.
As the team go about getting enough tasty bucks to feed the entire boat, another potential dinner guest soon arrives on the scene, coming in for a closer inspection of one of the locked off underwater cameras. With the lungs working well, the lads start dropping deeper in search of some real monster crays, down amongst the black corals, which are actually white when they're alive. In most parts of the world, these corals are limited to deep waters, but here in Fiordland, they can be found growing far shallower, thanks to the mixing layers of fresh and salt water that dramatically diffuses light in the upper reaches. Unfortunately, as is sometimes the case here in Fiordland, the truly big crays don't seem to be living in the deeper waters. Before calling it a day, the fellas harvest a few more from around the 10-metre mark, just to ensure there's no risk of anyone on the boat going hungry.
Oh, great. Get a little specialty to try.
Oh, brilliant.
What do you reckon the Traeger will do to that?
I don't know, we'll find out.
Brilliant. You tried octopus in the smoker?
No, I can't say we have, but I guess today's the day, eh? Something new to try.
You see cucumbers we might try later on too.
While Scotty goes about preparing the ocky for smoking, Tim decides he's still got plenty more diving left in him.
Well, the boys caught a half hooker here earlier in the day, so obviously there's the odd one floating around, so we just chucked down a few of the kinners we brought back yesterday. Just smashed up a few of them and dropped them down. That should get a bit of fish activity going, and yeah, we might chuck a few more in shortly and we'll just drop down and see if another one turns up, hopefully.
Unfortunately, after half a dozen deep drops to 25 metres, there's no sign of any half hooker in the area. So Tim takes one of the easy trevally on offer and calls it a day.
No hookers, but yeah, nice little Cherokee anyway.
Back on board the boat, and Dan and co have been getting itchy feet all afternoon, so they decide to roll the dice once again and head out for an evening hunt.
It's the last night here in Fiordland, and we'll be eating like kings probably for the next week or so. We've got a ton of crayfish and some good fish that have been speared and caught with the rods, so a bit of venison might be a bonus. We'll have a last-ditch effort tonight and see if we can find a deer. There's a clearing there.
Found a nice clearing down here. It's about 270 metres below us. We're sort of elevated on a ridge above it, so we might just hang around and see what happens. Just wait for a while and hopefully something will pop out.
Unfortunately, the wait and watch approach doesn't bear fruit, and as evening descends, the hunters are forced to return to the boat empty-handed once more. But at least they've got the gourmet dinner of fresh fish and a variety of smoked delicacies to look forward to.
We'll probably cut it down the middle, sprinkle some secret herbs and spices on top, smoke her up in the Traeger and see what comes out the other side. I'll leave it in your capable hands.
Yeah, I'll chuck it on a bit higher.
Get the smoky goodness.
Fresh blue cod, caught today and straight into the pan.
It's almost perfect, eh? It's beautiful, man. It's a secret sauce, bro. Scott.
Oh, just a bit of a last-ditch effort. Divers have made the hunters look pretty poor on this trip. Me and Tim thought we might get lucky on a last-ditch deer, so we'll sneak away for a hunt and these guys can pack up.
Good luck, fellas. Yeah, well, if anyone's going to get a deer, those two guys will. They're not bad in the bush, so he's hoping.
On camera.
That was all the action Tim and Dan were to encounter on the final morning, but we can't end the episode on such a damp squib. So we thought we'd at least try and go out on a high note by bringing you a few raw hunting highlights involving various Hunters Club members that did go a bit more according to plan. First up is this close encounter that our good mate Marty Very from Red Stag Timber had whilst hunting in Kaikoura. Whilst the stag wasn't quite the wall hanger he was after, he still managed to stalk into within 20 metres of the animal before it decided he had enough and boosted.
Oh, mate, how was that? Getting so close to them, mate. They're so bullish this time of year.
Meanwhile, Anto Hall snuck out with his regular offsider Morgan Rogers, and together they were able to knock over this beautiful 12-pointer.
Oh, he's poleaxed. Yeah, boy!
Yeah, perfect result. Nice stag.
Perfect 12. Century Otago stag. Pretty happy.
And last but by no means least, Mike Walker, who's been through thick and thin with us for no reward over a couple of testing trips, finally got the rub of the green and managed to topple this absolute thumper.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Big Otago 14-pointer.